Right, so it's night 117 of my attempt to plant a tree every single day for 2023. So let's get on with it. So I'm kind of sorry that you can't record smell on a camcorder because the smell in this area is just fantastic. So to plant today's planting, I decided the little area where some Carpentaria, which is one of the native relatives of the pyrethrum African marigolds, had gone to flower. I'm hoping it had gone to seed because it is a lovely little plant. It's actually quite a good toxic barrier in its own right. It is quite an insecticidal chemical in it. A lot of the chemicals in it are related to ones that are actually mass-produced for pesticides, which are thought to be sort of a little bit environmentally safer because they're derived from a plant. I would question that logic, but that's for another day. But while toxic protections are one thing you can do for a plant, there is another thing that you can do when you're trying to plant a little bit of forest, which is remember your thickets. So this is actually going to be a thicket on the edge of the kapok planting. So this is going to be right on the edge probably of the canopy of that. So right next to where we have our compost heap, there will be a little void because I can't plant a tree in the middle of the compost heap. So to bring the sort of canopy down to ground level, I'm planting a tree that can turn into a reasonably large tree, but can also be a low thicket. So it'll probably sort of keep it one side down, one side up, to create that grade and create a sort of barrier to the humidity and wind escaping from the area under the kapok tree. So this is Ziziphus mauritanica, which is the Masao, or I think it's one of the Jujubes, and it might even be called a Chinese date, I'm not sure. As far as I know, it's native, but its range will be up on the screen. And it is quite a pleasant fruit in my experience. It's a little bit tart, and I do know that some people find it unpalatable because of that, and there are some other domesticated jujubes which I know people prefer, but personally I've always quite liked the flavour. It's usually sold dried, and I did plant a few previously, and the chickens did do their worst to those seedlings, but a few of them have shown some signs of recovery, so I'm hoping this one, being slightly bigger, will stand up a little more and not need to be knocked back and then come back, but be able to get started a little bit sooner. But it is going in with a little Dracaena fragrans to shelter it from the afternoon sun, so that's going more or less due west of it. And then we're going to be putting in a little cluster of Alocarpus. These have been growing in quite a shady spot, so they're going to be also in the shade of the Dracaena for now, but they're going all around it just to give it a little bit of extra shelter, and then some Calico fetching coir just in case the little Carpentaria is not enough to protect it chemically. Between the two of them, they've pretty much got everything covered. It is quite well defended once it grows up. It is also called a vacupicky because the thorns on this plant are incredibly wicked once it becomes mature, and it's actually quite notorious because one of our more common antelope, the common duiker, which literally means diver because it dives into thickets to get away from perceived threats, notoriously in some areas their skeletons are often found in bushes of this because it becomes so dense that even this very inclined to jump into thorny thickets antelopes get entangled and can't get out. So vacupicky just means wait a bit. So that should be everything for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, thank you for watching this far into the video. Please feel free to tune in again tomorrow when I will be planting another tree. Part 1 of last Sunday's review has gone up already, and part 2 is currently being edited when I have time. So that will be up soon as well. And yeah, have a good one. So this is one of the few spiders that almost everyone in Zambia at least tolerates in their household, at least to an extent, and this is a wall crab or flatty. It should be one of the species of Aniphops. There's 2 genera do enter Zambia, both in the family Selenopidae, and they have these wonderfully flat bodies. As you can see, there's almost no profile there, and they often live behind wall hangings and portraits, and rarely appear except to rush out and eat some foolish little creature that has landed on the wall, which often includes a mosquito that is immediately post-feeding, and that is a very valuable habit because human malaria, which comes in 4 species but only 2 of them common, rarely affects anything that isn't a human, and so in order for a mosquito to spread it, it has to feed on a human. And a very mosquito that enters a house and feeds on a human lands on a wall and has a good chance of being gobbled up by this, you find that the transmission of malaria, which is a deeply unpleasant disease, trust me, goes down quite sharpish. So another great thing about these little guys is whereas most spiders are, well, they're more drinkers than eaters, this and a few other families are very much inclined to physically consume their prey, and so not only do they kill your flies and mosquitoes, usually they don't leave much in the way of debris behind, so they're quite a tidy little house guest. And yeah, really helpful in the not getting a deadly tropical disease sense as well. They're not inclined to bite, they are generally very retiring little spiders, and they will hide rather than fight every time, except against males of the same species. But they do have quite large jaws, and those do make a nasty little complex wound, so it's very important, if you do manage to upset one enough to get bitten, to disinfect it very thoroughly. The venom isn't medically significant, but the germs can be.